They're strangers, but you give them the keys to your house. You trust them with your property.
I used to invite my boyfriend round and we used to have sex on their table.
Your children.
I stopped dead in my tracks and I let out this, "Oh my God, I've left the kid on the bus."
And your secrets.
Coming out of the bedroom was definitely not the wife.
They're the domestic staff who arrive as you head off to work. The cleaners and the nannies you leave in charge of your home.
I'm a cleaner and I'm here to confess my sins.
In Britain today, we're spending 4 times as much on domestic help as we did 10 years ago. But do we really know about what sort of people we're letting into our homes?
The domestic you must trust the most is the one who guards your prized possessions. Children.
If your child can't talk, your child can't tell.
One of the big concerns with having a nanny, if you've got very, very young children, babies, how do you know what the nanny's getting up to because the children can't talk? They can usually remember, though, these children, and 2.5 years later, they will point out that they've actually been to this shop before or, you know, they've been to that house before and you don't know anyone who lives there. But 2.5 years down the track, it's too late.
The bigger the nanny's mistake, the more important the child's silence becomes.
It was a Valentine's Day and I was due to take the little girl out to the swimming pool. Well, anyway, I'd received this really big card and, of course, it took over my whole thoughts. I thought, fantastic, I wonder who this is from. Oh, God, I was on cloud 9, basically. We got to the bus, sat ourselves down, and I read this story to the little girl. And we'd just finished the story, so she had the book and she was looking over the pictures. And meanwhile, I'd gone into this sort of dreamlike state as the bus was going along. You know, I wonder who this card was from. I've got to find out. Got off the bus, walked along the street, still in this trance-like state. Suddenly, I stopped dead in my tracks and I let out this, "Oh my God, I've left the kid on the bus." How could I have ever done something like this? I can't believe I've done this. And I just thought, what if I don't find her? What if someone's taken her? All these awful scenarios went through my head. I looked up and I saw that the bus that I'd got off was about 200 yards down the road at the traffic lights. I sprinted from where I was down to the lights, leapt onto the bus, grabbed her. I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, darling. I'm so sorry. Lizzie's really, really naughty." She was sobbing, so I had to console her. And eventually we went swimming and we had a lovely time. But my only saving grace was that she was too young to tell, to split on me, to grasp me up.
And of course, you can always blame the child if you're running late.
I got to school late and the little boy is quite arrogant anyway, and he's like, "Well, why are you late?" And because I had his little sister who can't talk, I said, "Oh, Andy did this huge poo on the bus and we had to get off the bus, you know, because like it was just sticking the bus out and people giving us dirty looks, so that's why." If Andy was of talking age, she'd be like, no. You become a very good liar, nannying.
I knew one nanny, she was supposed to have gone to Legoland for the day. So, of course, that costs a fortune to get in, costs money to eat, etc., etc. So she managed to get sort of £50, £60 out of her employer and went off shopping for the day and spent that £50, £60 on herself. Came back and sort of said, "Oh, yes, we've been to Legoland, they had a wonderful time and everything." And she'd bought him, like, this little Lego thing while she was out shopping. And, "Oh, yeah, look what he bought." And she hadn't been anywhere near Legoland.
The problem with the live-in nanny is who she brings into your home.
The parents would go off about 8 o'clock. Front door would close and I thought, right, lovely, now the fun can start. Well, anyway, I had to be very careful because I had a 5-year-old on my hands and she was very, very bright, you know, and I thought, right, well, let's get her off to school first. So I had this little plan. I took her off to school and the little boy, who was only about 1 in the buggy, came back. I thought, brilliant.
The coast was clear for a rendezvous with her boyfriend, but there was still a problem. What to do with the 1-year-old?
I set up a little playpen in my flat with his toys and books, and I say, "All right, darling, you go in there. Liz is just going to lie down for a while. She's a bit tired." I mean, he was only 1, bless him, so he wasn't able to grasp on me or anything. Put him in his playpen. I'd get into bed and have a bit of rumpy-pumpy, how's your father, whatever, you know, and everyone was happy. My boss didn't need to know. And, you know, now and again, I'd look over at the little boy and he'd look up at me and, all right, darling. So he was okay, he was safe, and we could still be together. So it all worked out beautifully.
The domestic people know best is the good old cleaner, the person who comes once a week for a couple of hours to do your dirty work. Or so you'd like to think.
You can pass for 2 hours work, but sometimes we get it done in 5 minutes.
Well, you never really know if they're going to do the job properly. And you also know that what you don't see, you won't know about. So either you get neurotic and check everywhere, or, like I must admit I do, you just keep your fingers crossed that they do the job.
If you could clean the house in 20 minutes, you'd do it, and you'd spend the rest of your time watching daytime TV, having a cup of tea, a sandwich, read the paper. People have been known to have a snooze.
So how does James Owen get a 2-hour job done in 5 minutes?
It's an urban myth that bathrooms take a lot of elbow grease. Most can be done within a couple of minutes. And you wouldn't normally do the second shower screen either, because once the shower screen's back, you can't notice that. People like to see cosmetic things, really. It's about things looking nice and fancy. Most customers would imagine you would spend 20, 30 minutes. I make that about 3.
And James has a dirty secret that makes his cleaning even quicker.
Most people will use only one cloth, which will clean everything from your kitchen worktop right down to your toilet bowl.
And he's as good as his word, from the toilet bowl to the bedside table. The TV, the PC, the children's desk, the kitchen work surfaces, and even the oven. But his finishing touch is the biggest con.
Well, a lot of people don't actually like the smell of air freshener. So if you use a good polish with beeswax, spray a little bit behind the radiator and switch the radiator on. The client comes in and has a lovely smell of polish in the house, and they think you've been slaving away for hours.
And after all that hard work, it's time to clean out the fridge and take advantage of being home alone.
I used to get bored and I used to look in the fridge and find something nice to eat. Things I could get away with without them noticing I'd pinched a bit of it.
Pizzas, pastas.
The smoked salmon, the oysters.
Bread, butter. I mean, you don't count the slices in a loaf of bread, do you?
Copious bottles of wine.
The food would have just been in the fridge, looking at me, saying, eat me, eat me. So I did.
When the employer's not around, I could use their phones. And I used to invite my boyfriend round and we used to have sex on their table. And I'd be thinking about them eating their dinner while I'm sliding up and down on their table.
What cleaners get up to when they're not cleaning is only half the problem. They can be far more destructive when they're getting the job done.
I just felt absolutely terrible. It's one of the worst things that you could ever do, you know, while cleaning someone's house. I was cleaning this elderly lady's house and I was in a really energetic mood that day and I decided, you know, I'm going to really give it a good clean here today. You know, I cleaned all the windows underneath all the settees and like cleared away all the ashtrays and everything and I scrubbed the oven out. I got home, got a phone call from the lady. She said, could you tell me where Harold is? I was like, Harold? Yes, my husband. You know, I was like, thinking, what's she mean? And I thought, oh my God, the ashtray that I threw away. And I thought, oh my God, they said, with his ashes in.
What happened to Harold?
Harold was saved eventually. When like, I spoke to her on the phone, I told her that he was in the bin with a few other bits of rubbish, like reminders of a dinner. You know, I was absolutely lost for words. I didn't know what to say. You know, I just felt absolutely terrible. She said, look, don't worry about it, I'll do it. And but since then, you know, she's not phoned me back to go and work there again, so...
Employ a domestic and your most intimate affairs become someone else's business. Yes, you may have secrets from the wife, but don't count on hiding them from the help.
It's too terrifying to contemplate because these people are in your house when you're not there, finding goodness knows what. My housekeeper found a pair of crotchless knickers that I'd bought. And she didn't know they were crotchless until she held them up to show my 10-year-old daughter, who now thinks I'm a total pervert, you know.
The most important quality in a domestic is discretion at all times. And who's more discreet than the butler?
Your secret's safe with me, but don't push your luck.
Employers having affairs outside of the marriage is quite difficult to deal with because it's one of those situations that the butler is in between the devil and the deep blue sea. If Madame is going down to the potting shed and rogering the gardener every couple of days, if it all comes out, the boss is going to turn to you and say, "Did you know?" And what can you say?
Claire and I were doing a house and they were a married couple, and one day we let ourselves in with the key, and coming out of the bedroom was definitely not the wife.
She come out as blatant as anything, as if it was quite normal. He was a bit panicky, wasn't he? He asked us, you know, not to say anything to his wife, and even offered us money, you know, to keep quiet.
He actually offered us £100 to keep quiet, which of course we took.
Well, yeah, he was the one doing wrong, not us. I mean, and we never went back, really. It was too dodgy to go back and work.
Robert Watson's discretion was tested whilst working for a couple in America.
I've certainly been in a situation where Madame has gone away for a couple of weeks, shopping trip, Paris, New York, wherever. And normally in the mornings, a standing order of 2 teas in the bedroom at 7:30. And Madame's gone, so you just put 1 cup, knowing it's only him.
Robert was expecting to serve the master alone, but he was in for a surprise.
Certainly walked into that bedroom and found there's been 2 heads on the pillow, and both of them have been male.
Cheers.
But sometimes the domestic takes centre stage in household affairs, sowing the seeds of distrust in the family home.
I personally am for very ugly nanny uniforms. Anything to make the nanny look less attractive. Do you really want a nubile 20-something-year-old coming into your house, having loads of energy when you're, you know, haggard and knackered at the end of the day? Do you really want a woman who could well end up nannying your husband? What happens if the husband and the nanny get too close? The husband's going to turn around and say, well, she's looking after the children. Guilt, I'm meant to be looking after the children. You know, she's on your territory.
With some of my female bosses, they resented having a young female in the house. I have to say 1 or 2 of the bosses, the male bosses, had wandering eyes, if I can use that expression.
During a 10-year career working for 12 different families, Liz was in Geneva when she found herself on the receiving end of one man's attentions.
We were sitting there one evening. He'd made this beautiful pasta dish, a couple of glasses of wine. Our wife goes to the toilet, and I noticed his foot suddenly on top of mine. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here then? And he says, Liz, you know where my bedroom is, don't you? I said, yeah. Why? Well, I mean, you can always visit me tonight if you want, or I could come to your bedroom. You know, and he backed this up by saying, I'm serious, Liz. You know where my bedroom is, I know where yours is, we could meet up tonight. She'll never know. So I swallowed my pasta and said, no, I won't if you don't mind. I'll leave it. Oh, whatever. That's what you want. And he wasn't pleased, you know, and he got on with his meal. And his wife came down the stairs, and she came to sit down, and we all resumed our meal. I just couldn't believe the cheek of it.
The biggest threat to domestic bliss is the nanny who sets her sights on the husband.
One night the wife was absolutely exhausted, so she went to bed when the little fella had gone to bed, so it was just the husband and I downstairs. And so he suggested we open a bottle of wine. I thought, my gosh, I've got a chance here. I couldn't believe it. And so I was ever so excited about this. It was a lovely drop of red. And I didn't handle it as well then as I did now. I don't think I was quite as experienced. I can't remember quite how the evening progressed, but I remember chit-chattering a great deal to him. I remember vaguely saying something about what a lucky lady his wife was. And then the next morning, he suggested I look elsewhere for a job, that maybe it wouldn't continue at his house anymore. So I'm a little bit worried about that time in between that I can't remember.
What do you think might have happened?
Oh, God only knows, but he sure was handsome.
For a woman to let another woman into her home, to do something like that to her is just the ultimate betrayal. Same way as if you employed a male nanny, if he was having liaisons with the wife, that's the ultimate betrayal to the husband.
My advice to other butlers is if you see that temptation coming your way, then avoid it. And I wish I could say that I'd followed my own advice over the years, but unfortunately I can't. But that's down to the individual.
Most of the time, your domestic will remain loyal, trustworthy and discreet. But get on the wrong side of them at your peril. The days of upstairs, downstairs are long gone. The modern-day domestic won't stand for being treated like a skivvy.
I hate notes.
Ew, you haven't done everything on my note.
Telling you, there are cobwebs in certain parts of the room, and by the time they've written this note, they could have easily got their little feather duster and done it.
They turn their nose down at you and it's like they've got no respect.
If you treat your domestic like a servant, don't be surprised when they pay you back.
This woman complained about everything I did. She treated me like her general dog's body. And she used to have this complete fit on me for ironing clothes inside out. She just completely went mental one day about me doing this. And so I went mental back. And she walked out the house saying, I'm going to talk to my friend about your future in this job. So while she was out, I took a really big ironing pile and ironed a hole in everything. Folded it all back up and left, packed my bags and walked out before she got back. I don't feel guilty at all. People want to annoy me, they'll get annoyed back. I'll go so far, but then I'll snap.
I know it sounds really horrible. I weed in the toilet and I got the cup and dug it in the toilet and put it on the draining board. And I thought, right, you can drink my wee.
One despised employer brought a steak and kidney pie home to share with her cleaners.
But we didn't actually have any because we actually put some dog food in with the meat and we said we weren't hungry. It weren't really revenge. Well, it was, yeah, you can say revenge, but it used to amuse us.
These people should always have respect for cleaners.
Your domestic may be willing to mix business with pleasure, but be warned, never date and then dump your cleaner.
He was an ex-boyfriend of Claire's and we got on quite well. There was one time when he had a new girlfriend and he did sort of go on rather about how nice she was and this, that and the other.
Lovely job, not cleaner like us. And I got really fed up of cleaning that after his mess, her mess. Anyway, he wanted us to actually do his room just nice because he was bringing the girlfriend back, and in case he got lucky, he wanted us to change the bed. Michelle found some really good pillowcases, his daughter's pillowcases. So just to dampen the atmosphere, we put them on the pillows. Anyway, we found these dirty magazines and I thought we'll put that open on a really good page and get the shaving foam out, get the toilet paper, squeeze a bit on there, nice and sticky, cowboy boots just to make it a bit more kinky.
We tied belts around the bedposts.
Dog collars, all that sort of thing.
I think we were very proud of ourselves.
And he had to explain to her the reason why we did it, which was, even though we were the lowest of the low, it was okay once upon a time to date one of them.
And And even the butler, supposedly the most refined member of staff, can be driven to take revenge. And when he is, nobody does it better.
And the first thing this guest would do was always touch the plate as soon as I put it down to make sure that it was hot for the main course, whatever. And that irritated me because I felt that he was questioning my professionalism. So what I did was I put the plate half under the grill, and you couldn't see it, but this plate was sizzling. But just for that night I wore white gloves, and I put his plate down in front of him, holding it from the cold side. And his hands went on that plate, and I saw the look in his eyes, and the tears started to form, and he kept on rubbing his fingers. By this time I'm about 3 guests down, nothing showing on my face, carrying on as normal. And he went as red as a beetroot, and all throughout the meal then, rubbing his fingers, because it basically burnt the skin off the top of his fingers.
So, would our domestic confessors hire someone to work in their own homes?
Oh, I probably would, yeah, and I would treat them with respect.
I wouldn't employ a cleaner, no. I know what goes on in people's houses. I know what people can get up to, and I certainly know what shortcuts cleaners can take.
I would never let somebody like me look after my children, I'm sorry.
I just know I'd never want a cleaner.